On the surface, this was the ultimate success story. You've got two brilliant people, top of their class, working at one of the biggest tech companies in the world. They had, by all accounts, achieved the dream. But then, in January 2024, that dream didn't just end. It shattered in the most horrific way you can imagine. And in doing so, it held up a mirror to an entire society. So picture this. Two Google engineers living in a multi-million-dollar home in Silicon Valley. I mean, they had everything. But this isn't a story with a happy ending or a big stock option payday. No, it ends in a tragedy that absolutely captivated Chinese social media. And what it exposed were all the anxieties hiding just beneath that shiny surface of success.
And that's the big question, right? This wasn't just another true crime story. The way this one case was talked about, picked apart, and just obsessed over online, well, it tells us something really profound about the immense pressures of meritocracy, about shifting gender roles, and even about the changing perception of the American dream itself.
So, let's start with the story itself. It begins in Santa Clara, California, but believe me, the shockwaves were felt most intensely half a world away. I mean, just look at this. This is the absolute picture of a certain kind of dream. Both of them were graduates of Tsinghua University, which is often called the MIT of China. Both landed these super coveted jobs at Google. They had made it. This is literally the life path that millions of people are striving for, which is exactly why the tragic outcome was just so deeply, deeply unsettling.
And right away, this case hit a nerve. It tapped into this much bigger story, a really deep-seated anxiety in China about the promise that, hard work and good grades are the ultimate path to success.
For generations, this has been a foundational belief in Chinese society. The idea is that your education is the great equalizer. It's supposed to be the most reliable way to move up in the world, especially if you don't come from a wealthy or connected family. It's a promise of fairness, of opportunity. But the big question people are asking is that promise still holding true?
And this is where you can really see the growing gap between the ideal and the reality. The promise is a fair system, based on exams. But the cracks, well, they're becoming impossible to ignore. People see that parental connections can get you into an elite school. They know that teachers can be influenced to give out crucial bonus points. And it's obvious that educational resources are so unevenly distributed that some kids just have a massive head start from day one.
So what happens when people start to lose faith in that promise? Well, you get these two totally polar opposite reactions. On one hand, you have the tiger mothers, who basically try to game this rigged system by enrolling their kids in just an endless grind of after-school programs. But on the other hand, you have a younger generation adopting this lying flat mentality. It's this quiet protest of just giving up, opting out of the rat race entirely.
But that's not all. The case also exposed some really fascinating and frankly tense dynamics around gender, especially when you look at it through the lens of the immigrant experience. The pressures of adjusting to a new country, well, they don't hit everyone the same way.
There's this really interesting observation that immigrant women often seem to adapt better. The theory goes that coming from a more patriarchal society, they're just more resilient in a new environment. But for men, it can be the opposite. They can feel this greater sense of loss when the privileges they just kind of took for granted back home suddenly disappear, and that can take a serious toll on their mental health.
And boy, did this dynamic play out vividly in the online discussions about this case. The reactions were just starkly divided along gender lines. Many, many women expressed sympathy for the victim, recognizing the power imbalances that were likely at play. But on the other side, a huge part of the male reaction involved victim blaming, projecting their own insecurities with these narratives that, oh, she must have been a gold digger, or she must have been having an affair.
Okay, so let's zoom the lens out even further, because this tragedy happened at a moment when the very idea of America as the ultimate destination, well, it's being questioned.
For previous generations, the choice to study and work in the United States was, as one writer put it, a no-brainer. It was the path. But that's changing. Now the choice is way more complex. A lot of young people are seeing better opportunities back home in China, or they're considering other places entirely, like Japan or even Russia. The allure of America, it's just not what it used to be.
So when you put all these pieces together, this failing meritocracy, these gender tensions, a fading American dream, you start to understand why this single tragic crime became so much more.
It really became a collective Rorschach test. You know what a Rorschach test is, right? It's that ink blot where people look at it and see what they're already thinking about or what they're afraid of. Well, this case became an ink blot onto which an entire society projected its deepest fears, its insecurities, and its frustrations.
And those projections, they got weird. The house itself became this object of morbid fascination. People pointed out that its address had the number 4 in it, which in Mandarin sounds like the word for death. And this actually reflects a bigger trend among Chinese Gen Z, a turn towards things like metaphysics and numerology. And then, maybe most disturbingly, the accused killer got this strange online admiration, with some people commenting on how attractive he looked even in his prison attire.
So ultimately, this was never really about one couple or one house. It was about the cracks and the promises that a society makes to its people. A story that started with the perfect picture of success ended by revealing these deep, deep fissures in the myths of meritocracy, gender roles, and the Chinese dream itself, leaving a really haunting question for all of us.